Platformer games are fun to play, and with horror elements, it's more fun. That's why in today's video, I will show you the 10 best horror puzzle platformer games that you should try. So without any further ado, let's start this video. The first one we have DARQ. Set in a nightmare, the game features strange surroundings that may be manipulated in unusual ways. You may reach additional places by altering the level layout or climbing up walls. However, be wary, because odd and frightening things may lurk in the shadows. Next up we have Rain World. There are elements of platforming, horror, and survival in this game, along with some pixelated monsters for good measure. Players take control of a slug that prowls the game's dystopian ruins in quest of food while avoiding its many predators. Next up we have Shady Part of Me. With animation and a style suited for Coraline, the game comes quite close to becoming a living narrative. There is a lot of mystery and dread in this little puzzle platformer. Shady Part of Me is unexpectedly moving while being dark, strange, emotionally taxing, and terrific all around. Next up we have Tamashii. Tamashii is terror as sensory overload, a platformer that uses special effects and bright lights as Halloween does pumpkins. Its protagonist must sprint and jump through a horrific environment full of weird monsters, monuments, and engravings that are as distorted and filthy as they are curiously evocative. Number 5 we have Black the Fall. Black the Fall and Limbo are similar. Side-scrollers both. Both involve characters crossing ledges and scaffolding to dodge traps in a strange industrial nightmare. Both feature a high-contrast graphic style that spotlights the protagonist against magnificent surroundings, selling the player on the enormity of the planet and the hero's insignificance. Next up we have Albert and Otto. The adventure of Albert and Otto is fantastical and surreal, one that sometimes borders on a nightmare. Almost little information is provided to the player about the main character's background or his motivations. Some may be disappointed by this, but Albert and Otto aren't about complex backstories or plot twists. Next up we have Carrion. Carrion flips the traditional horror platformer on its head by putting the player in charge of a monster wreaking havoc in an abandoned lab and mowing down any unlucky soldiers in its way. This isn't a game set in a single area, and the many settings provide a lot of variety. Next up we have the Missing J.J, Macfield and the Island of Memories. The player takes on the role of J.J, who is on a mission to find her missing lover, Emily. J.J is immune to death, thus you'll have to inflict as much pain on yourself as possible to solve puzzles and advance in the game. The side-scrolling platformer's use of buckets of gore to depict a gay love tale about existential horror is a rarity. Number 8 we have Limbo. In Limbo, you take control of a kid who wakes up in a mysterious woodland. You must navigate its perilous boundaries while being accompanied by nothing but the game's spooky background noise as you try to avoid traps that would murder you in terrible ways. Given its ambiguous narrative and gruesome fatalities, Limbo is an unforgettable psychological horror classic. Number 10 we have Typoman. Its letter-based puzzles are used to put out commands, cautions, and threats. Typoman is the first video game that successfully makes the use of language itself threatening. You might anticipate the kind of actual running and leap from a top-tier platformer, but when you add in the game's unique concept and eerie atmosphere, you get something genuinely exceptional. So that's the list of 10 best horror puzzle platformers that you can play in 2022. Your support is much appreciated if you like the video and want to see more from Games Puff.